Hey everyone, welcome back to Mason Woodshop. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the xTool S1 fully enclosed laser system. And I've had the 20 watt version of this laser in my shop for about the past month. And I've done a whole bunch of different crafts and things for my family and daughter and gifts and all that sort of stuff. So whether it's engraving and cutting wood, typically 1/8 of an inch thick, but this was 1/4 inch material that it cut through absolutely like butter, to 3-dimensional objects made out of, this is 1/8 inch plywood, which is super cool. Slate coasters engrave so easily, same with leather and these stainless steel business cards, but also figuring out how to etch glass as well as stainless steel for these golf ball markers. So I've learned a lot about this laser, and not just about the xTool S1, but I also had the Creality Falcon 2 Pro 22 watt in the shop. So very comparable as far as power to the xTool S1 20 watt. So I feel like I've kind of gone from that laser beginner to that laser novice now. And so this is the basic kit, which includes the full enclosure here with 20 watt laser. It's also available in a 40 watt and a 10 watt version. It also came with the air assist and the honeycomb panel, which make up that basic kit. It's also fully expandable with a wide variety of accessories like a riser base, a rotary tool, a conveyor belt, and a few other things to help manage either fire or smoke effectively. So it's kind of the out-of-the-box experience on the xTool S1 was amazing, being able to get up and running very quickly. And I have already posted an unboxing and first impressions video where I show you everything that comes in the kit, how to get set up and running, and I go through kind of my first use in the software, which I think is something that's going to be unique compared to the Creality Falcon 2 Pro or other lasers on the market, is that you can get up and running with the S1 within 15-20 minutes. You're already into etching and not worrying about dialing in settings and that sort of thing. So I think that that's really kind of one of the things that sets this apart. And in the essence of full disclosure, I did want to say that the xTool S1 was provided free of charge from xTool for review purposes. However, the views and opinions in this video are absolutely my own and have not been influenced them beyond providing the tool free of charge and providing affiliate links that I'll have in the description below. So if you are interested in purchasing either the xTool S1 or any other xTool laser or material, I will get a little bit of a kickback from them if you do so. And in this video, I'm going to be highlighting, first of all, I'll grab a little clip and show you everything that comes in the basic kit. Then I will show you the pinpointing system and really kind of like how that software, the XCS or xTool Creative Suite, I think that might be what it's called, xTool Creative Software, how it works in combination with this, whether it's over Wi-Fi or USB, which is awesome to have multiple modes for connectivity. Then I'll show you what I'll go through the list of what I like and what I don't like about this laser, because there are a handful of things that I don't absolutely love about the xTool S1. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at what comes in here. Then we'll get back to kind of what makes the xTool S1 unique. Okay, so rather than bore you taking everything out of the packaging itself, I wanted to lay everything out on the table. So we have the manual, which is in a number of languages and really nicely done. So lots of images. Each page that has images has all of the languages on it for that pertinent information, but otherwise just really nicely labeled. Really quite happy with that. We have a material sample pack that comes with a variety of material, from some small sheet goods to a slate coaster and a number of other things. We of course have the laser itself. So this is the 20 watt. You can also get this in a 40 watt. I think that there was a 10 watt for a while. I'm not sure if that's still available. And then you can also get a 2 watt laser for really fine engraving. We have a material guide. So this is, well, more of a catalog. So this is a catalog of all the material that xTool sells on their website, which at a glance was all pretty reasonably priced. So I think that I will probably buy some material through them. We have this little toolkit, which comes with a screwdriver and a number of these little M3 screws, the locking USB stuff, the precision pointer, and a few other smaller accessories. We have the AC cable with wall plug for Canada and the US, so that's handy. We have the USB-C cable, USB-C to A for attaching to your computer. So I'm sure I can also just use a USB-C to C cable that I already have. It did come with this little grease container. I couldn't find any reference to this in the manual, so I'm not sure what it's for. We have a 3-inch exhaust hose. So this helps to, whether you're attaching it to kind of an outlet in your wall or window, or into one of the smoke extractors that you can get for this. We then have a couple of the optional tools that were included in this basic kit. So here we have the air assist, and something really neat about this, the rubber feet on the bottom of it. They're basically like earthquake proof. It's kind of like nice and jiggly, but really sturdy, just like the machine itself and the honeycomb. We then have the data cable. So this is the cable that communicates with the air assist to the S1 and vice versa. We have the little hose to pull in air for the laser. And we have a couple of spare filters. So when I checked, there's a filter already installed on the bottom, but it comes with a couple spares. Then we of course have the honeycomb panel, and yeah, really nice quality. It also comes with these little magnetic clips that are quite strong. So it basically goes into the honeycomb, and you can then hold down your workpiece on the honeycomb itself. So really quite happy with that. So overall, they fit all of this in that package, really nicely done. I don't think that there's much of a chance that anything would get damaged. So there you go, that's what's included. All right, let's just do a quick tour of the laser itself. So you can see at the front here, very plain, very basic, very kind of like Apple-y, where not too many buttons. There's a single button here with an LED ring that does kind of show you a whole bunch of information about what the current status is. And the top easily lifts up, and that exposes the 20-watt laser. My first impressions video goes through the whole setup process of doing this, so I won't highlight that here, but so easy to get set up. And you basically can just move it around, position it as you need to. You can see the alignment under there. The honeycomb panel is in here, and the total surface area in here, let me just check my notes, is 158,000 square millimeters. So a little less than the Creality Falcon 2 Pro, but the layout of this being wider, I think is a little more convenient than the Falcon 2 Pro, which is a little more square and deep. The overall system in here is quite good. The honeycomb panel, it does sit really low to the bottom. So something that I will highlight is that when you do a large piece of material in here and then you lift off a piece, it does, some smoke does get trapped. So the exhaust doesn't necessarily clear everything if you are using the honeycomb, because there is some residual smoke kind of stuck in the individual honeycomb bits in there. So let's move around. And both of the sides are relatively clean. Over here, you'll see the air assist and the emergency stop over there. Let's go around back. And here's kind of where we see all the expansion. So we have the exhaust port. It did come with a different one installed where it could just like exhaust out right away. And then I used this, which was included to have the hose, which I basically just vent to the outside. Then on the back, we have the air assist hose, the fire suppression hose. We have one of 3 expansion ports, which is right now is hooked up to the air assist. Then we have USB-C connection for connecting to USB-C to a computer, which I used for the first few weeks. Now I've moved to Wi-Fi, a lockout key, and power button. So really quite simple. So the one thing I really want to highlight in this video is the pinpointing mechanism of the xTool S1, which I think is really just such an innovative system. So we've got our piece of material in there. It's held down with the clamps to make sure there's no bowing in it. And I'm just going to move it so that the crosshairs are just anywhere in the material. And then in XCS, what we're going to do, I'm just going to hold this here. So we're going to hit this little target right there, which is going to drop the needle and set the depth of the material, which is going to allow the laser to focus very effectively. Now, on the Creality Falcon 2 Pro, this was not the best experience. You're using this little block to set the height and physically adjust it, which is very cumbersome. We can then select the material. It's 3mm basswood. Then we can click on this start marking. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow us to pick kind of whatever shape we want. So we're just going to draw a rectangle, and that's going to give us the safe space on our workspace, on both the material and in the software, so that we can do our engraving and cutting. So now what we can do is position the crosshairs. So I'm just going to go up there. get really precise. So it's really quite impressive. Move that over and then down. And those 2 points are going to make a rectangle on there. Let me just adjust the camera. So now in the software, I can click on end marking. And what's cool here is we could actually now do other rectangles as well. And that's then they would add them at the top along here, which is going to give you the ability to do batch processing. So really cool when you're doing a whole bunch of objects like coasters and that kind of thing. You kind of do 6 at a time or 10 at a time, however many you want. But it's really neat that you can do that at this stage. So I'm going to click done. Now it's given us the safe space. I've got my logo right here, which is an SVG. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an outline to this. I'm going to make the outline a little thicker. So that's going to give us a nice way to cut it. Then I'm going to select that outer part, change from score to cut. I'm going to select the inside part, just make sure it's on an engrave, which it is. Now I can drag this into that safe space. Let's just resize it a little bit. And it's going to snap to the edges if you want it to. I'm just going to do that. Now what we can do is we can click process. It's going to send to the laser. We could frame it, which framing, let me just show the laser right there. What I'm going to click on framing, I'm going to click the button. And what it's doing now is it's showing exactly where it's going to be doing that cutting. So it's just kind of that secondary way to know that you're going to be safe. So I can click on framing completed, start, then I can press the button and we're good to go. All right, it's getting close to changing from engrave to cut, and cutting is one of my favorite things to see. So you just see it go from like how quick it's going right here doing the engrave to then air assist kicks on and boom. I don't know why I love that so much. Kind of neat how you can see the beam coming down too. Solid work piece fall there. So now let the fan do its runoff before we open it. See, this is where I do wish that there was a home button to move the laser. But what we can do is push that back. You see some of the residual smoke that gets caught in these cells, but there we go. Absolutely perfect. And honestly, using the S1, I would say that the perfection of this kind of thing has just become the norm with all the work pieces that I've been making. So now I just want to show you some of the projects that I've been putting together. This is a small fraction of what I've been doing, but I'd say that the majority of what I have been working with is the 1/8 inch basswood plywood. So I've gone through, oh gosh, probably 20 or 30 sheets of that, doing various 2-dimensional objects. So whether it's something cool like this where you do an outline, then you can do the scoring. And then like my daughter loves coloring this kind of stuff in. So I've done a lot of that kind of stuff of like characters from shows and that sort of thing. And I typically buy my designs in SVGs off of Etsy. These were like really popular for Mother's Day. So I made a handful of these, which like super sturdy, just 1/8 inch material, but really quite nice. Do a little bouquet of those, which looks awesome. And I did want to show, I have recently started playing around with 1/4 inch material, which the xTool, the 20-watt laser has absolutely no issue cutting through whatsoever. You just kind of set it to that 6mm thickness and it just cuts through absolutely perfectly, just like the 1/8 inch. Then we have some really cool 3-dimensional objects. So these were using some of the plans from the xTool software. One thing that I would say is that when you are using those plans, make sure that you're not scaling the design file. Otherwise, those spots like right here where you need that 3mm gap, if you're scaling it down, well, all of a sudden it might be 2.4mm, and then the thickness of the material won't fit. So just be conscious of that. I made that mistake a few times. Just want to show you some of the precision when it comes to the engravings. Like here's a Spitfire airplane, just like absolutely amazing detail. with that 20-watt laser. So I really feel like the 20-watt is kind of the best of both worlds. It gives you powerful enough cutting to cut through that 1/4 inch material, but it also gives you that fine engraving capability, which will also be further highlighted on some of the metal objects that I'll be showing in just a moment. But really quite impressive. Photo, so you can do some photo engraving as well. So like this, it's really cool texture on this. I don't think it'll show up on camera, but yeah, pretty cool. I've done a few like photos of people and that kind of thing, and they work fine. I think that the grain of the material is kind of more of the barrier to than anything else. The obligatory slate coasters, so again, just kind of showing that detail. So worked out really, really well, especially given kind of the texture of this. But the awesome thing with the xTool software is just how easy it is to set the material, and you don't have to worry about the amount of power and the timing and all that kind of stuff when it comes to cutting these sorts of things. Leather, so these are just leather patches. It gets that really cool texture, and really quite happy with that. I don't think it'll show up on video, but the 2020, like the lettering of that fine stuff absolutely came through perfectly. And same with these metal business cards. So just very simple metal business cards. There you can see that 2020 shows up perfectly. So that detail of this 20-watt laser really comes through compared to probably what you would get with the 40-watt. Then let's get to some of the glass stuff. So I had one of my woodworking friends ask me about etching glass, and it was something I wanted to try, but didn't know how to do it because it's typically hard with diode lasers to etch glass, but I was able to do it quite well. So I did this on the bottom, so I basically just mirrored the image and turned it really, really well. There are a couple of lines on there, but the way that I did this was just by using this simple tempera paint, and I'll put a link in the description below. But basically I just coat that on the back of here where I'm going to be etching, then do the laser engrave to etch it, then just wash it off with water, and it's absolutely perfect and has that nice texture. I did a material sample pattern just to kind of see the intensity that I would need to do, because I don't think there was a default setting in the xTool software for glass for the 20-watt laser, but I was able to do that, kind of find exactly what I wanted. And these material tests are something that were absolutely critical with the Creality Falcon 2 Pro, like all the time. Whereas I find that with the xTool, given how well the software is built for various materials, I don't have to do material tests that often because they have them basically built in depending on the material you're using. So the last thing I want to highlight are these stainless steel ball markers, and ignore kind of the placement on here. I'm still getting used to a few things with that, but this was stainless steel, which diode lasers are kind of notoriously bad at engraving, and this isn't an engrave. I think that like you want to use the term etching. So what you'll see here is like this really nice black on this. It doesn't scratch off or any of that kind of stuff. And again, that fine detail, like the words show up really, really nice. And the way I was able to do this was similar to the glass, but using this black metal laser spray. So this Brilliance Laser Inks aerosol spray. So put a couple coats of this on, goes on white, and then you let it dry for a few hours. Then you do your etching, and then you wash off with soap and water, and it's absolutely perfect. So I just need to work on my centering a little more on some circular things, but really cool that you can do stainless steel on the 20-watt diode laser. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the things that I really like about this. And I think first and foremost, I just want to say that this is just a complete user-centric product. And what I mean by that is like everything from, like, you don't have to do much assembly. You have to remove 4 screws and install the laser with 2 screws. It's so simple to get going on this. The software coupled with this kind of design philosophy is really quite nice. The build quality of the unit itself is also super impressive. It's something for me in my one-car garage shop. I'm placing stuff on this all the time that aren't related to the laser work. So if I have a drill and I need to set it on this, I can do so without thinking I'm gonna harm it. So it's just kind of that nice durable build. It's a little heavy, but it's not unreasonable to move this from place to place. I was moving it between tables kind of throughout the whole month. Also, the documentation is really quite impressive, not just what they include in it from a print perspective, But the online documentation, whether it's from xTool directly, which they keep a lot of content up to date, but also the community. There are a lot of people that have the xTool S1 in varying strengths of lasers. So there's a ton of content on YouTube across everybody from professionals that work in the engraving and laser cutting space to tons of DIYers and crafters, woodworkers. There's just such a wide audience that is using this and sharing how they're using it, which is really quite cool. Moving on to another thing that I really like about this, and I've already highlighted it in detail in this video, so I'm not going to go into full detail, but the pinpointing system is awesome. Yeah, there's no camera. There are ways to use the xTool mobile phone with in combination with some stickers to do some positioning via imagery. But for me, the pinpointing system is awesome. After using the Creality Falcon 2 Pro with the integrated camera, which is cool, getting it configured in Lightburn, definitely a little cumbersome. And then the practicality of it, yeah, it does help from layout, and I can get pretty precise with it, but not necessarily any more precise than I'd get with the pinpointing mechanism using the xTool XCS software. So overall, that pinpointing system is pretty impressive. Also relating to kind of the setting the material height, being able to do that with the pin that drops in combination with the XCS software, being able to select 3mm basswood or 6mm basswood or stone coaster, like the material settings, and even using proxies within the material settings. So like if I'm doing a stainless steel golf ball marker, I can just set stainless steel dog tag. And because it's checking the distance between the laser and the material using the pin that drops, I don't have to worry about having like the exact same dimensions of what one of the dog tags xTool cells would be. So being able to use proxies, I think is quite valuable with this. The honeycomb. So I do want to, there's kind of something, so this is both going to be a pro and a con, but the honeycomb is really quite good. It helps air movement, and it's a nice thing to put all the material that I've ever used on it. So as it does build up some residue, you will get some residue that comes off like on certain material, but it fits nicely. It gives you kind of just a nice workspace. Now on the con side, I do wish that it was raised up just a little bit. And I think that if I do get the riser for the S1, which I am considering doing, I'm probably gonna put some blocks under this just to get a little bit more airflow, because I do find that if I remove a piece, there is some residual smoke trapped in the cells of the honeycomb, which does kind of also impact that residual smell and that sort of thing. So I know I'm kind of dipping into some of the cons there, but the honeycomb is awesome. But I just wish that it was raised up a little bit more. Yeah. So another thing that I do want to highlight about the honeycomb, as well as being a positive, is just the hold down mechanism. So these little magnetic clips. What I realized was the first batch of 3mm basswood that I got from Amazon was really quite flat. I didn't have to use these hold down clips, but as I expanded where I was buying some of my material from or different manufacturers, they're very warpy. And these hold down clips, even though there's only 4, did an effective job at holding it down sufficiently to get really nice laser cuts. So being able to use the honeycomb in combination with these magnetic clips is really quite good. And without doing any sort of screen share, I did want to talk about the XCS software. So that is absolutely one of the pros of this unit. And I think that, yes, you can use it with Lightburn, and I did try that. You do have to find like a specific file in order to get Lightburn to recognize it. It was the same for the Creality Falcon 2 Pro as well, so nothing unique to the S1. But Lightburn, there's a learning curve for it, and you have to know a little bit more about material settings and that sort of thing, whereas the XCS software just works. And I know that I got lucky by using the version 2.0 version as kind of my first foray into it, because I heard some horror stories from a few other folks about inconsistencies in the software and issues with it before, but that seems to be almost all worked out. It's also like surprisingly powerful, like dragging in SVG files or PNGs and doing tracing. Like you can make vector graphics out of any of your non-vector graphics. So it's really quite impressive software. So I think that that's something that, especially for beginners, just know that there is this really accessible software from xTool. And even if you're a power user, you can dial in all the settings. You can dial in the power percentage and the speed of the laser. you can do all that in there. You can set different tracing or different paths for kind of how you want to do your cutting and engraving. You can have absolute control over that, but if you don't want to worry about it, you don't have to worry about it, which is awesome. So now let's talk about some of the cons with the xTool S1. And I think first and foremost is the size. So from the left side all the way, and I'm going to include the air assist here, you're almost 930 millimeters. So it's quite wide. And as far as the depth, it might not look that deep, but then when you factor in the stiff hose, you're actually going to be roughly like 720 millimeters or so. So it's wide, it goes surprisingly deep, and the other thing is, while it looks super compact, and it really is, you need a lot of clearance in order to open up the lid. So for me, I'm going to be positioning it over here, but I need to build a table for it that can accommodate this as well as the riser. Now, the Creality Falcon 2 Pro had a really cool roll top that was really quite impressive. So like it was maybe as high, like about this high, but you didn't have to worry about this. Now, I do think the S1, it can be a little difficult to get some material in, but I wish that there was like a locking position at about this height, because it would be more than sufficient to get material in the honeycomb in and out, but it falls. So you have to go all the way up. And yeah, so that might be a little nitpicky, but I do find that the space dimensions that you need in your shop or in whatever room you're working in is quite significant with this because of how this opens. The other thing with the kind of the dimensions of this is that there is no camera in here. And I think that that's something where it would be absolutely cool if you could put like a really wide angle camera like mounted on there, but then you have to worry about wire routing and all that kind of stuff. So like I think that it could be done with this, but it looks like they've taken a different solution using the app. So yeah, while there is no camera, and that can be a bit of a downside for some, the pinpointing system I think overweighs that quite significantly for me. So as we talk about some other shortcomings of the xTool S1, I think the biggest one for me is no control over the exhaust fan. And that's something that I really wish that I had. And I know that they've gone for simplicity with the single button, but I think that they could have done a few things here. So number one for me would be able to turn on the fan or turn on the fan anytime I want and have it run for however long I want. Because I find that if I'm doing an engrave and then a cut, that the fan has that runoff of like 10 to 15 seconds, and that can do a good job getting the majority of the smoke out, but it doesn't get all of it out. And then when I pick up the material, there's always that residual smoke, and I wish that I could keep the fan on that entire time. So having no fan control is definitely a little disappointing. The other thing from a control perspective is I wish that there was a home button. I wish that we could set a home position for the laser, whether it's at the back or at the front corner, that sort of thing, and then press a button. Now, I'm not worried about what software can do, but I wish that there was a button on the laser itself that could move the laser module into one of those corners for easier material and honeycomb management. It is easy to just lift this up and push the laser, but sometimes it would just be nicer to have that button. So one other con I want to note about the S1 is just that I find that smells can linger. And I've been using the Creality for just as long as I have the S1, and I find that it exhausts fumes and smoke so much better. I think part of it is because the fan is running much longer when it does kind of finish its cut, so it will have that like 30-second runoff. You also have control over the fan where you can turn it on if you want. And I think that that's really going to be kind of one of the shortcomings of this, is that not having any fan control does keep some of the smoke in here. Now, if I push this over and exhausted all the smoke out the door and then left this closed before removing my material the next day, I could open this up and it would just absolutely stink. And even if I did remove the material right away, there is that residual smoke that comes up. So I do find that if you are going to be using this in like a bedroom or something like that, make sure that you have a really good inline fan. That's something that I haven't yet explored in too much detail, but make sure that you are managing the smoke effectively to get it all out of there rather than relying on that 10 to 15 second runoff that currently exists with this. It's like the last kind of critique on the xTool S1 that I want to know is just, it's not cheap. So the price coming in at this one right here, $16.99 US or $22.99 Canadian. It's expensive compared to its competitors. It's $500 to $600 more than the Creality Falcon 2 Pro with the same amount of power. There are also a number of other non-enclosed lasers that are significantly cheaper as well. So if you're looking to just get some cutting and engraving done and you have great ventilation and you have a space for it, those could be really valid options. Now, I do think that the price is fairly well justified given the completeness of the tool itself, but also the software. And I think that that's something that you can't really discount too much. So I'm okay with the price, and I'll talk more about the price in a few minutes, but I think that it is something that needs to be considered as a con, just knowing that it is that much more expensive than the direct alternative. Oh, and actually one last con that I want to highlight, and I don't know if this is more of a recent thing after using this for quite a while, or if this has been since the beginning, but there's this annoying hum that is coming from the laser. So let me just get my microphone close and see if you can hear it. It's not loud enough where it is going to drive me nuts by any means, but it's noticeable enough where I've just wondered if something's wrong. But this might have been going on since the beginning, and it's just subtle enough that you don't hear it all the time when it's closed, but I can still hear it enough that I know the machine's on. Okay, so with all that said, what are my final thoughts on the xTool S1? And I think that I want to summarize it by saying that this has found a permanent spot in my shop. So I am primarily interested in cabinet making and that sort of thing. So a laser was kind of one of the things down the road that I had always kind of considered just like a 3D printer, but not something that I saw as integrated into my woodworking. But after using it and engraving and cutting and playing around with things, it's been so much fun to play around with. And I'm not a crafty design person, but this makes me feel kind of crafty, which is fun. So I've had a blast testing different material. I am planning on building a level table over here that can accommodate the vertical height required for this with the riser base as well. So I'll have some nice storage for lumber and containers below. I am also looking at adding not just the riser base, but also potentially the rotary attachment to do like mugs and that sort of thing, mostly because I want to play around with it. I think it's more of my curiosity than anything else. So those are the official xTool accessories that I am looking to add. I'm also going to have to figure out smoke and fume management, because right now it's more than sufficient for me to open the door, exhaust out there. I have the other garage door open, so any kind of residual smoke, while it can be a bit annoying, especially if you were inside your house, it's not unreasonable for me in my shop. But I'm looking at either getting a purifier. xTool does make one, although it's around $900 Canadian. Or I think Jamatsu and a couple of other brands make them around $400 to $500 Canadian. So I am potentially considering a purifier, which wouldn't require me to vent anything outside, which would be awesome. Or going with the approach of an inline fan, which allows me to basically take the exhaust hose here, cut it off, have a fan that's going to suck air through the laser and then vent to the outside. So that's a much more economical approach, and there are lots of options, whether I go with a 3-inch inline fan, 4-inch inline fan, 6-inch inline fan, I don't know. So leave a comment in the description below if you have any recommendations on fume and smoke management with this laser. So whether you have experience with the S1 or any other enclosed laser, I'm super curious to hear your recommendations, because I am willing to invest in that. I just don't know which solution to go with at the moment. But if you're in the market for a laser that's ready to go, and I think that that's kind of the way I look at this, this is the one for you. Now, the 20-watt version that I have in front of me retails for $16.99 US or $22.99 Canadian, and the 40-watt version retails for $22.99 US or $30.99 Canadian. So there is a pretty big price difference between the 20-watt and the 40-watt. The 40-watt is going to allow you to cut thicker material or thinner material like you can cut with this faster. So I think that if you're doing a lot of cutting, the 40-watt is something that you should definitely consider. If you're looking for kind of a jack of all trades, though, I think the 20-watt might be the one to go with, because it's going to give you the ability to cut, I think it can even cut up to like half-inch material, but it's going to allow you to cut that 1/4-inch birch plywood just like butter. It works so well. And it's also going to give you that fine detailed engraving and etching that the 40-watt's not going to give you. And another option, whether you have the 20-watt or the 40-watt, is also the 2-watt infrared laser, which is going to allow you to properly engrave things like stainless steel and other metals in a much more effective and precise manner. So I'm getting by with the 20-watt with the laser ink on the ball markers. And I think that that's going to be all that I do. I'm not looking to get into laser engraving on metal in any more detail than I am with that. So I think I'm going to be all set with the 20 watt, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything with that 40 watt laser. So I think that about wraps it up. It's been awesome playing around with this and sharing kind of my thoughts with you, but leave a comment below on kind of your thoughts, whether it's on xTool, lasers in general. Just share your thoughts on it. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos soon.